Thank you. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see such an eclectic mix and such a talented mix sitting right here. And I really feel humbled that I have an opportunity to talk about something which I am extremely passionate about, and that is how do we really fuel innovation through diversity? We keep talking about diversity as if it's an unique concept, and the people need to be given chances, people need to be given opportunities, as if you're doing a favor. No, my dear, if you don't have diversity, you don't have growth. As simple as that. So we'll go through slides. I promise you my slides are super boring, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on my slides. I'm trying to do better than my slides, so we'll probably go there. This is the lay of the land in general, what I want to talk about. I would be eternally grateful if I get questions from the audience as we are talking, because otherwise this is super boring. But I would try to talk to you about why I feel we need to be talking about it today, right? See, we can all have case studies, and I will take you through some where we will talk about why diversity is important, when somebody did not have diversity, what did they mess up, and all of that. But I just want every one of you to just think back in the last 7 days. Forget about everything else and just think about what all did you eat in the last 7 days. Did you all eat the same food in the last 7 days? No, right? Why? We don't get the necessary nutrients if we eat the same food. Forget about just the taste of it as well. Now, to even survive, you need diversity. Why are we even questioning whether businesses need it or not, right? So here's a very simple representation of what businesses are going to face as we move forward, right? Our workforce is going to be different. I see a lot of age diversity here, which makes me feel really good, but I think I will still make that eye roll statement, oh, Gen Z, right? Yes, they are in the workforce and very different from the previous generations. So we have a diverse workforce. Markets are changing massively. Anyone who's seen the US or the European markets will tell you that there is so much of, there's such an age diversity. It's an aging population. Now come to an Asia, come to an Africa, we are looking at such a young population. So markets are changing. How do we know what to sell, what to give them? Our entire globalization has changed the markets we reach out to. It's completely changed the technologies we have access to. So pretty much we are in a landscape where everything is changing, and there is no way for us to take comfort in the familiarity. So with that, let's talk about what really is diversity. You know, my pet peeve is every time you talk about diversity around 8th of March, around Women's Day, and everybody like gives you those pink cupcakes and tells you that diversity is done. That, I think, is one of the worst ways of representing diversity. Diversity lies in everything. Yes, it lies in gender, but it goes way beyond that. It goes to where did we all come from? The different places, the geographical diversity that we have, the ethnical diversity that we have, the skill sets that we all come from. How many times have we, sat in a meeting and we have wondered, oh my God, I wish there was at least one person from a design background sitting in this meeting. All of us are thinking in one direction. I don't even know if there's a blind spot, and none of us have thought through about that, right? So there's so much of diversity from a skill set standpoint. There is obviously diversity from industry. I've worked with organizations where I've worked with people who have been career in a particular domain. Nothing wrong in that, but just put someone else coming from a different industry in that mix and just see ideas fly. So diversity is there everywhere. It is for us to accept that. Right before me, Preeti was talking about not boxing ourselves in. We should also not box ourselves in the definitions that we carry in our mind. The definition of diversity means having a certain percentage of representation of a gender or a percentage of representation of a sexual orientation. Let's get beyond that. When we hire, when we build teams, do we really think about bringing people who will be different from each other? That's my definition of diversity. And this is how I think about innovation. It's basically the lifeblood of moving forward. I've put in a lot of fancy words here, but the entire idea is if you want to move forward, you need to innovate. Otherwise, you're just going to fight against the inertia. There's only one way to think about moving forward, and that is to keep questioning the status quo and keep getting better. And I would love to talk about how diversity can fuel that. So I'll take a simple case study, and I'll tell you why this case study stuck with me. Uh, for someone who's not really fond of driving, who really hates traffic, I am a very active passenger to the extent that sometimes my husband would always be like, "Why don't you just come behind the wheels, given the amount of suggestions you have?" Now, one thing really stuck with me. Imagine for decades when there were crash tests being done on the car, there was not a proper dummy representing a female physiology. So there would be airbags which would deploy much faster, which would kill women more than they would kill men. So airbags, which are meant to protect us, were not made for women. Seatbelts were made in such a way it would crush women's sternums way more than it would, impact men in a crash. So something as basic as making a passenger in a car secure was not even thought in a diverse way. And these are data which has come from a lot of McKinsey researchers. So women are 47% more likely to be seriously injured and 17% more likely to be killed. And all of this, it's not archaic history. I'm talking about as latest as 2000, where fatalities used to happen because of car designs simply because we did not have dummies representing women bodies. That's something to think about. Now, imagine if these teams had enough women sitting in them. If these teams had people sitting maybe from a medical background. Did anybody tell them that, hey, you know what? You don't need an automotive engineer. You probably also need a doctor in the panel who can probably tell you, you know what, women bodies are different. The heights are different. The way you deploy your airbags are going to be different. So it's not just about a gender diversity. Look at a skill set diversity missing in this entire scenario. Here's another example, and this is an example, it's very personal to me because it's something I remember writing a very, very long, nasty Facebook post on as well. It's a Pepsi ad, and it's a lovely company. It's an organization which has done amazingly for itself. But all of us, we fall in that trap of talking tone deaf and offensive stuff when we don't even understand what something means. So there was this ad which came sometime in 2017. They had swiftly pulled it off. In fact, you can't find it in YouTube anymore. This was an ad where Kendall Jenner was handing out a can of Pepsi to police officers and people who were protesting for Black Lives Matter. That was problematic, right? Most likely, Pepsi did not have anyone in the team telling them why these movements are important. Maybe they never thought of having, somebody from a social background in that particular team. They probably just had their marketing folks who thought it'll be cool to send a Pepsi can when people are screaming their lungs out to make sure humans live. So yeah, these are some of the examples. I think each of us have faced it in our own lives, right? How many times, I'm sure, and here there's a larger representation of ladies. I'm sure a lot of you must have sat in meetings and wondered, did I walk into a wrong room? I seem to be the only one here, right? I'll give you a personal example. In one of my meetings, there was close to 28 leaders. It is the entire, entire tech and business leadership of a particular organization I was a part of. And there were two women, one in business and one in tech. I happened to be the one in tech. And all through the meeting, we kept looking at each other, almost wondering, are we in the right place? What are the life choices we have even made today, right? And I think all of us have examples of diversity failing us in some way or the other. I really don't think I need to talk through the pointers here, but we've probably all experienced when you have a diverse set of people, how different your ideas are. I'm not sure if all of you would be able to relate to it, but I'll just give you this in any case. Imagine having a group of friends, particularly the friends we make in school, the wacko crazy ones. You never know what they will eventually turn out to be because we were all kids. Now, when we meet them, after 20, 30 years later, and you sit down and you plan a trip, the ideas that flow, I mean, those ideas can run the world, by the way. And the whole reason why we have so much of connection in those particular group is because all of us are leading diverse lives. Somebody is in some part of the world, somebody is doing something else from their lives. I have friends ranging from somebody who's a pilot to a doctor to an IT professional to who's, built their own chartered accountancy firm. And when we all get together, all of us from different professions, and when we have our conversations, what we really realize is how different our perspectives are. But if we put our heads together and solve one problem, we're going to touch much more dimensions than me doing it with people of my cohort. So break out from that cohort mentality. And it is so much difficult to do. I'm standing here on a high horse and talking to you about breaking out from a cohort mentality. Hardest to do. I'll give you real life examples. When we hire, all of us, we hire for our teams, we build our teams. It is so difficult to question an organization. Why do you only hire from these selected set of colleges? Why do you only hire from this selected set of backgrounds? I work in a tech setup, in an analytics, data science setup. Why should I only hire engineers? I would love to have people from humanities. I don't think coding is a problem enough for people these days. We can easily upskill people. But I would love to have people from humanities who have an eye for detail, because these are the people who have gone through reading pages and pages of research paper on history or on sociology, and they would bring me customer perspectives from my data, which I never really thought is possible. So it is a difficult journey. We all feel that, we would love to empower ourselves to foster diversity, but we first need to even accept the fact that are we diverse enough? Are we humble enough to open up to different thought processes? Are we humble enough to open up to people coming from different backgrounds with different skill sets, people who come with completely different perspectives? So I think once we get there, that's where everything starts falling into place, and you would automatically see your ideas being challenged, which is actually a really good thing. You would see people bringing in perspectives that you would have not heard before. Very recently, I was in a business planning meeting, and one of our team members spoke about, they come from a tier 3 town. And, we were talking about how India is becoming very e-com friendly, how India buys beauty. Of course, I'm in the business of beauty because I'm in Nykaa. And he gave us a very interesting perspective of how his mother and sister shops for cosmetics. What they still, the beauty products are still like kirane ki dukaan mein milta hai, right? And that's the whole mindset that they have. And it gave us such a different perspective when we were planning our AOPs, our business plans for the next year. Now, it was possible because we decided to have someone who's not from a business background just sit in the meeting with us and share how their families shop. Something as simple as beauty is something everybody shops for. How many times do we really stop to ask maybe, the help in our house or the staff in our office that, hey, how do you shop for? If I would have known how you shop for, I would have probably understood how India shops. So, definitely diversity is something which we actively need to practice. And that's the really big message that I would want to have all of you think about. Numbers, which I think really, really boggles your mind, that you really need inclusivity to foster diversity. I mean, great, you've built a team which is diverse enough. You are okay to hear thoughts which are different, but are you giving a safe space for people to speak up? That's where inclusivity comes in. And we've seen numbers, there have been researchers from Deloitte where they've said that there is like 42% less likely attrition if there is a inclusive and a diverse workforce. teams make 87% better decisions. Employees are, almost like 4x more likely to contribute to their full potential. These are numbers tough to quantify, and these numbers majorly come from surveys. But imagine being in a workplace where you are not challenged because your ideas do not fit the box. In fact, you are celebrated because your ideas do not fit the box. And each of us should take the ownership to make sure that if somebody is giving us ideas which don't fit the box, the least we can do is reconsider the box. So this is, what happened after women were overlooked in car crash tests. So Volvo, true to the legend that the company carries, that they make the safest car in the world, they took it upon themselves to design the first female body dummies for their research programs. And that's how Volvo changed how their airbags deploy, how their seat belts work. And it became such a big standard setting movement for the automotive industry that BMW and Honda followed suit. So then you had like some of the biggest car makers start using a standardized female body dummy, and that has made cars safer. But unfortunately, it took as late as 2019 to happen. So imagine this is where, a lack of diversity has failed innovation, which could have very easily been done. Fenty Beauty, we had the good fortune of launching Fenty in India at Nykaa, and what stuck with us was, here's a brand which told us we are made for everyone. And the reason is, imagine a brand goes and says, you talk about foundation shades, how can I have just 8 or 10 foundation shades? Skin colors come in all colors, and everyone should be celebrated. And I'll give you one interesting tidbit. Maybe some of you have noticed it. Certain foundation shades are priced differently because we believe that certain shades sell more, right? Fenty absolutely stopped that. They said every skin color has to be celebrated the same way. There is no price on your skin color. And that absolutely changed the way companies like Maybelline and L'Oreal were working. In fact, it is a Fenty effect that's actually there. You can look up Fenty effects. There are papers on Fenty effect, which basically talks about the entire discrimination that companies bring in the garb of diversity, where we say, okay, I've launched 20 shades for you, but I'm going to price them differently because I feel certain skin needs to pay more to look pretty. So that's the power of diversity, where you start changing how an organization, how an entire industry thinks. After Fenty, all the launches that we have seen, whether it is Huda Beauty, whether it is all the other brands like Estee Lauder, they've all started adopting to this because today the market demands this. And the market can only demand when you start telling them that this was unfair to even begin with. Now, I spoke about biases. I think we've all had these biases in some way or the other. Somebody comes from the same background as me, same college as me, speaks the same language as me, has been in similar organizations. Super easy to bond. Yes, sure. And these are biases that comes in when we hire, when we build our teams. And this is exactly where we now need to start questioning. I come from an economics background, and my first job was very, very coding intensive. Now in economics, in my days, they never taught you how to write codes, right? Because we were told that your life is in academics. But I kind of chose to come here. And I had heard it so many times, oh, you've done a great job from coming from an economics background to learn coding. Now that stereotyping is what was the biggest hurdle I had to overcome when I started learning something which was not a direct part of my skill set. Can we, in our own lives, maybe overcome that bias and then, really embrace diversity? These are the things I think we need to do. We really need to have an accountable leadership. What I mean by accountable leadership is not those talks that happen around Women's Day or annual days and all of that, right? A leadership which truly believes diversity permeates the gender ratio in your organization. There, I said it. Diversity is not just the gender ratio of your organization. You cannot just have a measurement metric which says, I have X percentage, this was my goal, I've hired people. How many of us have heard that term, right? she's a diversity hire. Yeah? Probably one of the worst ways to qualify a professional. We really need to rethink how we look at diversity. It is not just about having enough gender. It is not just about having people from enough region. It is about creating people with different perspectives, a safe space to work together. And yeah, we do away with these blind hiring practices. In fact, I love this suggestion. This is something we have been trying to implement, that you just take away the name of the candidate from the resume. Just take the name away and let us look at the resume. I can tell you resume selections completely change. And I've seen that happening multiple times in my own career. Sure, set smart goals, track them. We are all people who have looked at data. We know how good data works, so we'll measure it, we'll do it. But all said and done, my humble request to this particular group is all the numbers in this slide are fancy. Of course, diversity will give you financial performance. Your regulators are going to be happy. You will have better talent attraction and all of that. But diversity is the very essence of moving forward. Just like we don't eat the same food every day, just like we don't wear the same clothes every day, we don't listen to the same music every day, why not have different perspectives around us every day? And that's the only way which is going to make us better. So thank you so much. You've been a lovely audience.